this session is going to be very impressive. It's all going to be the art of approach in LinkedIn. So with 546 million users, LinkedIn is all about building networks and connections. It's not only about who you know, but about who your connections know. That's the real power of LinkedIn for business, the ability to tap into existing connections and grow your brand through word of mouth. It is also the top-rated social network for lead generation. If your LinkedIn marketing strategy is limited to a personal page, especially one with an out-of-date bare-boned resumes, it's time to game up. So I have Miss Julie Mason. All right, the stage is all yours, Miss
Lovely. Thank
Mason.
you so much. Good morning, good evening, and hello around the world, wherever you are today. I'm beaming from Australia here. It's a bit of a rainy, dismal morning this morning, so wherever it is for you, I hope it's a great day. And today I'm really excited to share the art of approach on LinkedIn. Now, as our wonderful host spoke about, LinkedIn is a premier business network, and we have well over 560 million members around the world, and it's a vibrant business network. But there's so many things that happen on there which need a little bit of fine tuning. So the stats are only 11% of those numbers, 560 million people, know how to use LinkedIn really effectively for business. And I want to share some tips with you today that you'll be able to take away and actually implement straight away for your business to help you generate more leads easily and elegantly. And it's really important that we actually understand the psychology around what I'm teaching today as well. So I want to start off with that a little bit, and then we're going to jump in to a couple of key takeaways. So first of all, what I see, a couple of big mistakes that happen on LinkedIn is when people connect, they connect and go straight into pitching their services. I'm not sure if anybody else here has experienced that, but it is a little frustrating because there's no trust built yet. So it's like going up to somebody in the street that you've never met before and asking them to marry you. I think the results could be a little hodgepodge, not necessarily what you're expecting. So what I would like to share with you today is how to become a person of value, how to really build know, like, and trust in the communication of LinkedIn, and how to do that in such a way that you're positioning yourself as an authority and as a person of value. And that's really important as we go along. So let's start off with, first of all, thinking about every relationship, every connection that we create. And I really want you to think about using LinkedIn strategically rather than randomly. So I see many people who are on LinkedIn kind of have what I call a spray and pray approach. They kind of just scatter it all out there and hope that something sticks. So we want to do something a little bit more strategic with your LinkedIn approach here. So be really thoughtful about who you're approaching and are they your ideal customers? And we'll talk more about that in a moment. But when every time you make a connection, whether it's on LinkedIn or whether it's live in person, let's say you're at the auditorium today and you're meeting people during the breaks, for example, and you're swapping business cards, what I want you to think about is that every connection, every person that you're building a relationship with is like opening a bank account. We all know what opening a bank account is like. Initially, when you open the bank account, it starts at a zero balance. Before you have the opportunity to withdraw from that bank account, you need to make some deposits. So imagine that you've connected with somebody, and what you need to now do before you can ask for them or ask something of them, you need to actually add some value to them. That's what we call an emotional deposit of trust, essentially. So we need to actually be that person of value. And then when we've got a balance, we then have the ability to draw down and ask something of them. So I hope that makes sense for everybody, but it's really important that you think about your relationships like an emotional bank balance. How can you add some deposits? How can you add value and build trust so that you have the right, have the opportunity to draw down on that at a later time? So let's talk about this more in detail, because people, when you connect with them, are still very wary. There's still a lot of concern about who are these random people that might be reaching out to connect with them on LinkedIn. And if you happen to be that random person, how can you expand your chances or your opportunities of them accepting your invitation? So we're going to start off with 3 key areas. The first one is having a clear strategy, and we're going to talk about that in more detail. The second one is having a solid foundation, and we'll talk about that. And the third one is serving, not selling. So I want to start off with having a clear strategy, and that comes down to really knowing who you are targeting. When I speak with a lot of customers, and I've been teaching LinkedIn for well over 9 years now to business owners around the globe, and when I talk to them and I ask them, who is your ideal client? Many people say everyone. And that's not going to serve you as the business owner or you as the salesperson in the sales role to actually really get great results, because everyone is too broad. It's really hard for your mind to actually comprehend that every single person out there could be your client. So what I would encourage you to do is narrow down and really create a detailed client avatar. And I'm happy, I've got a great example of this, and if anyone would like it, I am more than happy to share that client avatar with you. All you need to do, and here's the first little gift, I'm going to give you some gifts today, is to connect with me on LinkedIn. So it's Julie Mason, you'll find me. I'm based in Brisbane, so it's not hard to find me, Brisbane, Australia. If you find me on LinkedIn and connect with me and send me a message saying, please send me your client avatar, I will be happy to send you an example of this that you'll be able to have. Now, the client avatar is really where you really nail down all of the elements of who you are trying to target. What is their industry that they work in? What is the title or a number of titles? They might go by operations manager or contract manager. So what are the different titles that they might go by within the business? What is their seniority level, for example? Are they a manager or are they, a line worker? Whereabouts in that, seniority level are they? And then I want you to really dig into some more of the motivations, their fears, their wants, their needs, and their desires. Because every single business transaction, in fact, every transaction that we do in life, whether it's for business or for personal, is based on emotion. We buy on emotion and we justify with logic. So as a consumer, whether it's a business consumer or just an everyday, life consumer, we buy on emotion and we justify with logic. So when we're approaching people, we really need to understand what's motivating your prospects. What's the fears, wants, needs, and desires of your prospects? And really understand those, dig into those, and write them down on your client avatar so you can understand. For example, some of their fears could be fear of failure, fear of being seen as not competent in their role to their superiors, fear of making a mistake. They've had a limited budget, they've made a bad hire or hired a contractor or a service provider in the past and it's not worked out, and they're a little bit, unsure about doing that again. So these could be some fears that they have. What could they want? Well, they could want to have, better, smoother operations in their project management. They might want to have, a smoother process and onboard the staff into their project management, whatever it is for that particular person. Some desires could be that they're seen to have hired or contracted, for example, a great contractor in the eyes of their manager. What are their frustrations? They could be just frustrated with all of the different steps it takes to hire you, could be that. So have a think about these fears, wants, needs, and frustrations. Really dig into them. Do some research and don't be afraid to actually ask some of your past customers, preferably ones that you feel comfortable to ask these questions of, and find out what were their fears, wants, needs, and frustrations. That market research will serve you well moving forward. So really understand what's driving your clients and really understand what's their biggest challenge. What are they really struggling with at the moment that you can help them with? So what's the biggest problem that you solve for your ideal clients? Make a note of that, because that really pays into the second part of what we're going to talk about with your foundation today. And then how can you be a person of value to those prospects? How can you be a person of value to them? What information are they looking for? Now, LinkedIn tell us that 62% of LinkedIn members are coming onto LinkedIn looking for insights and updates regarding in their industries. They're actually looking for industry insights and updates that will be relevant to them. Now, that's a real gold nugget for you to write down, because that tells you what type of content that you might be able to write that can actually appeal to your target market. So content is something that can attract your target market in as more of a warm lead. We're also going to be talking in the Art of Approach about reaching out more into a push marketing strategy. So our second step, once we really understand who our target market is and what's motivating them, what is their biggest challenge, and how can you actually show up as a person of value to them, then we need to look at our foundation. And our foundation on LinkedIn is our profile. And most people, their profiles are not written necessarily to serve their prospects. It's written more like a resume to serve themselves in a career move. And so I'd like you to really rethink how you use your personal profile to help generate business, because everything that you do on LinkedIn swings off your LinkedIn profile. Yes, we have company pages as well, and they're so important. But when you reach out to connect with your ideal prospects, that happens from your personal profile, not from your company page. So your personal profile needs to reflect a clear message of value. What is your value proposition? Again, how do you serve your ideal clients? How do you help them with your biggest challenge? And I want to share with you a little formula to write your summary in particular today, because this one, the summary is where the biggest mistakes happen. So I'll share with you what are the 3 biggest mistakes people make with their summary, so you know what not to do, and then I'll share with you the formula of how to write your summary more effectively. So the 3 biggest mistakes that people make with their summary is 1, it's non-existent or too short. So we really need to expand so that you can engage and build rapport with your ideal prospects. You have 2,000 characters roughly to write your summary on LinkedIn. Make the most of those 2,000 characters. The second mistake most people make around their LinkedIn summary, in particular on their profile, is they write it all about themselves. So if your summary kind of reads, I am, I have, I've done, or if you write it in third person, Julie has, Julie did, Julie does, for example, then it's not going to connect with your prospects. Unfortunately, your prospects think the universe revolves around them, and for them it does. So we need to really speak to where they're at this point in time. And so we need to reflect frame our summary from talking all about us to talking about the problems that they're going through and taking them on a little bit of a journey. The third mistake, and this is a biggie that most people make with their summary, is that they fail to put a call to action at the bottom of their summary. Because if people do find you and they go, you know what, Julie Mason, she's got some really great ideas there. I really want to learn out more about how she can help me. But you haven't gotten a call to action at the bottom, which tells them what is the next step to finding out more about working with you, then you're missing an opportunity and you're actually cheating your prospects out of finding that solution. I'm not sure about you, but there have been many times where I've gone onto Google and I've searched for a problem that I've got and I've looked for a solution and I've found a website that appears to have exactly the solution that I'm looking for, and I go to find their contact details and I don't know what the next step is. There's no contact details at all, and it's so frustrating. So don't do that on your LinkedIn summary. Let's go through the formula of how to write your summary so that it actually becomes your silent salesperson for you, so that it can do some of the heavy lifting for you on LinkedIn and actually step in and make this a really easy, elegant way to work with you. So the summary formula goes like this, and I'm going to break it down in paragraph by paragraph for you. The first paragraph is the identify paragraph. And it's where you help your ideal prospect identify the biggest problem that they have and how that's affecting them. So identify the biggest problem that they have. The second paragraph is what I call the aggravate paragraph. And why I call it the aggravate paragraph is that we actually have to stir their emotions. We have to get them to understand what it's costing them to have this problem. I call it holding up the mirror and saying, hey, this is what it's costing you to be stuck in this moment at this point. We don't want you to be stuck here, but this is what it's costing you, and to remind them of that cost. So the aggravate paragraph is to say, how is it, this is what this big problem that you've got is costing you financially, emotionally, physically, maybe even spiritually. And by spiritually, I mean that peace of mind, that sense of calm, that zen that we have, right? How is that affecting them there? Let me give you an example of this. And I'll use one that I've written a few years back around lead generation, because that's what I help people with. And you'll hear what I talk about when I'm talking about the different costs here. So let's say it this way. Without leads, money starts to dry up. Finances become tighter and tighter, which means you start to work longer and longer hours to keep everything afloat. Tough decisions have to be made, and all of this takes a toll on your health and your family life. Now you can hear that I've actually addressed the financial, the emotional, the physical, because it's the long hours, and even the zen in the spirituality in terms of your health and your family and everything that's going on there. So what is it costing your ideal client to have this big challenge that they've got, this big problem that they've got that you can help fix? Now, we don't want to leave them in that pain. So the third paragraph is the solution. And in the solution paragraph, we're talking about the overarching solution, not the methodology of how you solve that problem, but what's the overarching solution in general terms. Then the fourth paragraph is what is the proof that that solution works. You might be able to back that up with some statistical data. You might be able to find some data across your industry that will actually prove that. Whatever that might be, it could be that you've got data within your own business and the results that you've been able to generate for your clients. You might even be able to just do a little paragraph of an example of a client that you've been able to help that would be representative of most of your clients. Whatever that might be, put in a little bit of proof that that solution works so that they can see, your prospects, when they read your profile, can see that you've got the solution and that it works. The fifth paragraph, and this is the only paragraph really about you, is the credibility paragraph. Why should they trust you over anybody else to help them solve this problem? What is the experience that you bring to the table? What is the experience that your company brings to the table? What's the credibility of you? Now, for many people, if you're an entrepreneur or a solo business owner, your magic is actually you. There is no one else who has the unique perspective that you have. And I know that many entrepreneurs struggle with that when they start their business in particular. Now, the last paragraph is the call to action paragraph. Be really specific about the steps that they need to take for doing business with you next. For example, if you offer a 30-minute free consultation, then tell them, hey, if you would like to have a 30-minute free consultation with me, then please contact me on, and I would recommend that you put your phone number or perhaps your website address where there is a form for them to fill in with their details so that you can call them back, or a direct line, for example. If it's not a mobile number or a cell number, then maybe your direct line, or perhaps to an answering service where they can book in a time that helps to alleviate that whole organizing the diary. You could even do it straight to your calendar link, maybe Calendly or TimeTrade if you use those calendar meetings accordingly. The one thing that I find is not a great converter when it comes to call to action is asking people to email you because they don't know what to say. So that is the lowest converting call to action that you can ask for. So just a couple of tips there with a call to action. But that's how you write your summary so that it speaks to your ideal client. Now, why I say this and why I'm really giving you some time around that foundation there is because when you connect with somebody, they're going to have a look at your profile. And it's really important that your messaging is clear and that they understand how you can be of value. Now, once they've come and had a look at your profile and they've gone, okay, yes, this person is worthy of connecting to, and I think they've got some value to add, and they click accept on your invitation, now is where we need to start to become a person of value to them. And this is where most people start to immediately sell. And I'm going to say, whoa, up a little bit here. Don't start selling just yet. Remember, we need to surface. We need to put a deposit in that emotional bank account that we've opened with that connection, with that new LinkedIn connection that we've created. One of the best ways to do this is to actually create a LinkedIn article that will speak to your ideal client, that will give them some juicy, great, really valuable, rich information that actually addresses that big problem that they've got. So that when they do accept, you can say and send them a private message and say, hey, Joe, thank you so much for accepting my connection. I really would love to be of service to you. I noticed that you work in this industry, and I've written an article recently that may be of service for you. Here's the link. I'd love to hear your thoughts and feedback, and if this was helpful. And then just your salutation, cheers, Julie, or whatever that might be. So add some value first before you ask of anything from them. And often you'll find that when you write your articles really well, you can even add at the bottom of your LinkedIn article a call to action that will also encourage them to take the next step with you. And that's becoming then not so spammy and much more elegant because, again, you're just adding a rich content that is of great value. Keep in mind what I said earlier, 62% of LinkedIn members are coming onto LinkedIn looking for industry insights and updates. They're looking for help. They're actively trying to find somebody who can help them in your industry. So be that person of value, be that person of service. And when you do connect, one of the tools that you've got available, we have different tools on LinkedIn from the free to the premium to Sales Navigator. If you do use Sales Navigator, it gives you the ability to follow that person, and even on the premium and the free, before you go back and message them, go and have a look at the activity that they're doing. If this is a high value prospect, it's worthwhile seeing what's appealing to them by what they've liked or what they've posted, what they've commented on, read some of their articles, and then highly personalize your message to them. That shows that you've taken thought, that you've taken time, that you're really paying attention to them. And people are starved of attention nowadays. We're the most connected society, and actually the ones where we're all trying to shout at each other rather than to listen. So in this case, I would say really listen to what they're posting, what they're sharing on LinkedIn, so that you can actually highly personalize your message to what their needs are and show that you've paid attention to them. That's what we call real service. One of my favorite quotes that I've had, and I've been in sales for over 25 years. I've done over 15 years of door-to-door cold calling. And about 20 years ago, I came across this quote by Zig Ziglar that said, "A sale is not something that you pursue. A sale is something that happens to you when you're in the service of others." Let me say that again. A sale is not something that you pursue. A sale is something that happens to you when you're in the service of others. So if I can leave you with a thought today that's really important, it's about how can you serve your prospects at the highest level, regardless of the outcome. How can you serve your clients, your prospects at the highest level, regardless of the outcome? Become a person of service, become a person of value. And I think you'll find that really will stay with you. Now, once you've connected to your ideal prospects, because you're now connected, you have the opportunity not just to direct message them, and that's definitely important, but you have the opportunity to nurture those connections through the content that you post on the public news feed on LinkedIn. So make sure that you've got a good content schedule or good content calendar, and really think out, what topics your ideal clients would be interested in, and how can you actually, create some content that crosses all different ways, from video to articles to general newsfeed posts that would be of value to them. They're just a couple of little tips for you to think about as well. Now, one of the things as well, when you actually start reaching out to connect, when you're on the mobile phone in particular, if you're using the mobile phone app, for example, then what I would suggest is that you do this one little tip, because if you find somebody on the LinkedIn app and you go to click connect, it will just send the standard, "I'd like to invite you to join my professional network on LinkedIn," which is a little bit lame. But next to the connect button on the LinkedIn app, you'll find either 3 little dots or a more button, depending on what version of mobile phone you use, whether it's an Android or an iPhone or whatever. Have a look for either 3 dots or a more button, M-O-R-E it will say, and click on that before you click on connect, because that will allow you, it will have a drop-down menu that appears, and it will allow you to add a personal note. Now, if you're on the desktop version, whether you're on the laptop or your computer, and you click connect on their profile, it will ask you, it will have a pop-up window that will ask you, would you like to add a personalized note? And I highly recommend that you do that, because it will, when you add a personal note, it will increase the person accepting it by 70%. That's huge. 70% acceptance by just adding a personal note is a massive difference. So what should you write in that personal note? Well, here's a tip for you. Keep it really light and breezy at this point in your communication. All you need to do is actually show that you've got some things in common. Not a lot, it might just be one thing. For example, if I'm reaching out to a business owner here in Brisbane, in Australia, for example, then I would just simply say, "Hey, Joe, I noticed that we're both based in Brisbane. I'm looking to build my network here. I saw your profile and it looked really interesting. Look forward to connecting and getting to know you further. Cheers, Julie. So really simple, not too complicated. Again, we're not here to pitch at this point. We're not here to sell them anything. That's a big turn-off for people on LinkedIn, and it's a turn-off in general, let's face it. So we just want to actually answer the question that's in their head that says, who is this person and why are they reaching out to me? We just need to answer that. It could be another example of, hey Joe, I saw your profile and I really enjoyed some of the comments and the posts that you've been posting. I'd look forward to connecting and seeing more of them. Cheers, Julie. Or if you've met somebody on an actual live event, such as in the auditorium in Jamaica at the moment, you might say, hey, it was great to meet you in the auditorium today. Really looking forward to connecting and staying in touch on LinkedIn. Simple connection requests that make an impact. So that's really important to do. Always be thinking about the way that you're approaching people. Is it something that you would enjoy being approached on? And think about your ideal clients, your ideal prospects. How are they wanting to be approached? So I want to give you a couple of resources that are really valuable. I found them incredibly valuable to me over my 20 years in sales by Art Zobzak, and it's called Smart Calling. So Smart Calling by Art Zobzak is S-O-B-Z-C-A-K, I think. I'm not sure about how I pronounced his or spelled his last name, but Smart Calling, if you Google that, Art has written a fantastic book there that has got awesome scripts in it that are used generally on the phone. It's how to eliminate the fear of cold calling, but those scripts are beautiful phraseology and beautiful wording that you can mold to your LinkedIn messages when you're approaching people. And it actually shows you some great ways to actually use your approach more effectively. And it's one that I've given to my clients hundreds of times. I've bought hundreds of copies of that book to give to my clients over the years. Highly recommend you read that one. Another one is Smart Prospecting by a different author, but Smart Prospecting also will give you some fantastic scripts for your approach messages and how to sequence out from connection through to having a phone conversation. We don't actually want to sell on LinkedIn. We want to connect, build trust, and take that connection from being LinkedIn into being a on the phone conversation or maybe a face-to-face meeting, depending on your business model. But there's some tips from me. I'm not sure if I'm on time or over time, or if we've now got the option to open up for some questions. I'll come back to my host and see if we've got any questions coming in. But basically, really think about how you can serve, how you can be a person of value in your whole LinkedIn approach. So that's my tips for you today. And I'm here to answer any questions. I'm not sure if we have any at the moment, but my host will be back in very shortly. So I can't see
Yeah.
at the moment. Yes. Hello.
Yeah. Hi. Thank you very much, Ms. Mason. Thank you very much. There are a lot of insights about approaching new clients on LinkedIn, and I really appreciate on the summary part, the segments, how to build and promote ourselves. And so
important that you get that summary written well so that it speaks to that ideal prospect. And as I say, it can be that silent salesperson for you if it's written well, and it can make a massive difference in the way people will actually connect with you then as well, and how you're found on LinkedIn search too. So very powerful thing to do.
And also, I get that, to add the credibility at the end. Is that what you say? Is that what you recommend?
Right. So the credibility is just, it's the fifth part, the fifth paragraph of your summary, then your call to action. And yes, credibility is really important. You need to answer the question in their mind, why should they choose you over anybody else in your industry, for example? And we tend to not want to big note ourselves too much, or we overdo it and talk all about our credibility in terms of the various diplomas or degrees that we've got, rather than speak about how we're passionate about what we do and why we do what we do is far more important. In LinkedIn, you have a whole section on your education, and where that may come into play is putting all of your degrees and your diplomas and your certificates that you've achieved through your education. Definitely put that in your education section. Don't overdo it in that credibility paragraph. Speak more about why you're passionate about helping people, because passion is what ignites people to want to do business with you. They'd much rather do business with somebody who's passionate over somebody who's theoretically got it all together. Does it make sense?
Yeah, actually, I have my credibility added at the second segment. As you lined up with the segment, that's a reason. So, do you really recommend that to be at the fifth segment, or can I still leave it the same?
I do. I do recommend that you have, credibility in there. And I think, I wrote an article recently on the ways to build your credibility on your LinkedIn profile, because this comes to positioning yourself as an authority, giving people confidence that they can do business with you. And so the credibility paragraph's important, but so is having your endorsements, for example. So is having recommendations by your past clients on your LinkedIn profile. That will all speak to your credibility of why people should do business with you. Absolutely. I think somebody's asked the question what the name of the second book was that I recommended, and that is Smart Prospecting. I can't think of the last name. It's by Michael, and I can't think of his last name. It's escaped me at this early hour of the morning. But Smart Prospecting, the author's first name is Michael. I can't think of his last name. Hopefully it will come to me. But if you Google Smart Prospecting on Amazon.com, I know that you'll find it there quite easily. It's a great book with some great scripts. So Smart Calling and Smart Prospecting, two different authors, but both have great scripts in it that you can actually amend for LinkedIn really easily. And the wording is quite elegant. It stops the spammy feel or the pushy feel of approach and makes it quite elegant. So it's one that I highly recommend for all my clients to get.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Mason. We are going to bring in our Jamaica auditorium live. So kindly bear with us for a moment.
I can see we have another call while you bring in the auditorium, but somebody asked, do I need a paid membership or can they work with a free version? Absolutely, do the free version until you have a strategy in place. And then I encourage you to upgrade to a premium or sales navigator once you have a clear strategy. If you'd like more help, by all means, you can. I do a lot of free webinars on these topics, including free or paid. By all means, connect onto those webinars by going to juliemason.com.au, and you can sign up for my free webinars, and I will be happy to share a lot more content around this with you, which is quite rich and juicy content that you can apply. So we'll go to the auditorium.
All right.
Questions, anybody, on the presentation that was just made just now by Ms. Mason? Anyone? Yes, there's a hand. Good. Welcome hand, yes. We need a microphone, we do, because we have to ensure that the audio transmits.
Yes, good evening, everyone. All right, so the question is based on LinkedIn. Is it that we don't need to put detailed information, as in, like certificates and all of those things, and just put a breakdown of the 5 steps, the credibility, the call to action, or not sure, just trying to find out how differently you can use LinkedIn to reach who you really need to reach.
Okay, so you're asking if we don't need to put up all the certificates and all of those things, if it's just to.
Just put the,
So he's asking, and help me here. He's asking if he's to list all the certificates.
If I understand it correctly, let me just see if I understand it correctly.
LinkedIn, or is
Essentially, don't get too hung up on the credibility paragraph. The credibility, and you, by all means, you can go to have a look at my LinkedIn profile, and you'll see what I mean by the credibility paragraph. It more speaks to how can you help them? What's your experience in this industry? What's your passion? Why are you passionate about helping people with this issue? In that credibility paragraph, by all means, go and have a look at my personal profile and have a look at the summary. You'll see that it's written in a way that adds value, that takes people through that. And you'll see by looking at the identify, the aggravate, the solve, that proof of solution, credibility, and call to action, you'll see that formula at play in my own personal profile on LinkedIn. And that may answer some of those questions. Again, if you've got a lot of degrees or diplomas or certificates, whilst that's admirable and really great, and it can be put into that credibility paragraph and add some weight to it, don't overload it. I've seen people who actually have a list a mile long of their actual certifications that they've got, but that's not going to speak as much to your ideal prospect as the passion that you have. So in your LinkedIn profile, there is a whole section on your education that you can actually list all of these courses and degrees and diplomas and certifications that you've got. That's where you really want to put that, because people will scroll through your profile. If they're interested in doing business with you, they'll definitely scroll through and have a look at who you are in more detail. But that credibility paragraph really should speak to your passion, about why you're really keen to help people in that particular area and what your experience is. So, for example, it could be that you've worked in your industry for 10 or more years and that you love seeing your clients get great results and to see them experience a different outcome from what they're having at the moment. So talking conversational tones when you're writing your summary, tend to avoid doing the, writing it like a resume where it's bullet point. Talk more in conversational tone when you're writing. And I think you'll find that serves you better. Also, by the way, just on another point, when you're writing your summary, I find that it actually works better if you write it in first person, as in, talking from the I, or if you are saying, I am passionate about this, rather than Julie is passionate. Third person tends to put in a distance. And what we're trying to create here in the Art of Approach is a human connection. And you don't go up to somebody on the street and say, Julie has done this today, for example, when you're the person speaking about yourself. So speak as you would to somebody face to face. Write your LinkedIn profile as if you're speaking to somebody face to face. You'll find that will encourage people to connect. It will build more rapport with you, and that they're more open to, the conversation with you moving forward.
Okay, thank you very much.
Do we have any other questions from the auditorium? Yes? No? All right, so we have no more questions from this side. Raj, over to you.
Thank you very much, Debbie. All right, Ms. Julie Mason, thank you so much. And that's a new kind of an approach that we may try on our LinkedIn page as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great day, evening, wherever you are in the world.